So this is my third time being back in Colombia. There's nothing really telling me that I have to be here. I don't have work or school or anything saying that I need to be in Colombia. I could really be in a lot of different places in the world right now, but for some reason, I keep coming back to Colombia. And today in this video, I'm going to be talking about why, as a foreigner, I find Colombia to be such an attractive place that I keep coming back to and think that I'll continue to keep coming back to for a long period of my life. My name is Jake, and for the last several years, I've been doing the whole digital nomad traveling lifestyle. And I first visited Colombia back in 2019, just a few years ago. And when I was here for the first time, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with this place. There was just something about the place, even though I didn't understand the language, that just really drew me. It really made me want to stay. And I think that for me, particularly being a foreigner, being a Westerner, down here, it just feels like every day is an adventure. It feels like I just have this incredible sense of adventure that you get from just traveling and backpacking in general. But there was something about South America that I think has just this added sense of novelty and adventure that I don't think as a Westerner I can find necessarily as strongly in a place like America or Europe, both places that I've done some traveling in and that I really enjoy and that I really love. But I think that because South America is a little bit kind of an older world, it's less of a developed world, there's a little bit more there's just this more spontaneous element to life. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the people, because the people are just these very, warm and friendly people that will that'll just invite you to do this or invite you to do that. And so it's very easy to make connections and make friends. And when you do that, you end up doing things that you wouldn't have expected that you were going to do. I think just in general, because I'm a Westerner, because I'm so used to kind of what is almost like a sterile environment in the modern world where all the edges are kind of rounded and everything is safe. And I think that's great. I think that most people ought to live that way. I think most people enjoy living that way. But for me, even though Colombia is a little bit less of a developed place, I think that is a part of what kind of attracts me to it. South America definitely has its problems, like Colombia specifically. They were having protests at the beginning of this year that kind of made me leave the country for a little bit. So this place isn't perfect. There's definitely a lot of problems here, but the problems here, and I think this is maybe because I'm a foreigner, don't necessarily have the same sort of impact on me. I'm from the United States. I'm from America. I'm someone who loves America. I love what our country stands for, but I think that most people are unhappy with a lot of the way things are going in the United States, regardless of what sort of political opinions you may have. But down here, I know the problems are real. I know they exist and I know they affect people, but because I'm a foreigner, it doesn't affect me as much as it is my own country. When I'm in the United States and I hear people talking about the problems that are going on in the United States, there's just a little bit more of like an emotional pull, because it bothers me a little bit more, because I have a genuine affection and love for my country, and it's kind of like the love that you would have for a family member. And if that family member started doing drugs,
I've adopted the attitude of the great Negro at the time pitcher in the Negro leagues, went on to become a great pitcher in
it hurts you after a while, so then eventually you just have to push them away and go somewhere else. And I think that's part of what I'm doing down here in South America. Part of it is the fact that I'm being drawn here because there's this unknown sense of adventure, because it's not a place that I've grown up in. It's not a place that I am familiar with. And so every day feels spontaneous and just fills you with this unique energy. Regardless of just the sense of adventure, it's also the people. Like, the people are really a huge part of what makes this place feel like sort of a semi-home for me, because the people are so warm, they're so kind. Don't get me wrong, this is a more dangerous place, but generally here, I think particularly in Medellin, you find some of the most warmest, most nice people in the entire world. There's just these people that are willing to go so far out of their way just to help you with some of the most minor things. And to me, that's something that I almost don't understand at times as an American, because I think that in America we grew up with the idea of time is money. We're all looking after our time. We're sort of guarding our time, and we don't want anyone to waste our time. And I think that's a great thing, and I think that's what makes a good and prosperous economy. But I don't think that it maybe is the best for forming human connections all the time. So it's a trade-off. I don't think that one is inherently better than the other, but that is something that I appreciate down here, is that I can get a taste of sort of the other side. There's this almost more natural human warmth here that I just really appreciate, that you can find in just about everyone you meet. It's very rare that I meet anyone here that is rude, whereas I think you can go about your day in America, stopping by a store or this or that, or just driving in the highway, and you might run into pretty fucking rude people, if you're having a really bad day. But here, it's very rare, and if it does happen, it really stands out. And granted, I've been here long enough to where I know that there's certain parts of town where I don't want to go to, where me being a Westerner, looking the way that I look, would definitely find myself in the hands of some, maybe not so nice people. That comes with the territory. That slight bit of possible danger is what makes it just feel a little bit more adventurous. And I think that without that, you have a sterile environment that isn't necessarily as conducive to a feeling of adventure all the times. And the thing that I think millennials particularly would care the most about living in a place like South America America, if they're able to do it, is the affordability. This place is incredibly affordable. I'm able to live a much higher standard of life here than I would if I was in the United States. Most things here are half, sometimes even a third of what you can get for in the United States. And that's just something that's really nice. It's really enjoyable. It's really nice to be able to live a higher quality of life for less money. You can save money if you have a job that's online. And the last thing, and I'm not gonna spend on this too much, but it's el yaje. It's ayahuasca. There's these psychedelic ceremonies that are going on down here in these really tribal communities that exist down here. It's going on in the United States to some extent too, which is interesting. But that's something that I can be a lot closer to down here. It's really cool to be close to something as tribal and something as ancient as those ayahuasca ceremonies. And so that's another thing that is kind of pulling me down here a little bit as well. It's that it's really fascinating that down here you can find indigenous people that are engaging in these ancient rituals, and it shows you a lot about humanity. It shows you a lot about like what it means to be a human when you are able to see something that has existed for so long. And that's something that I don't think we're necessarily able to find as much in the United States or in Europe, where they're much newer places and they lack that sort of that ancient tradition that I find to be just completely fascinating. But that's just me. Anyways, thank you very much for watching this. I'm going to be leaving Medellin pretty soon, and I think I'll be going, I don't know. So we'll see. Bye.